Hey class, welcome to week 3. I just want to give you an overview of what we'll be doing this week. It's going to be about graphic design concepts. You'll want to start with chapter 3. It's going to give you some great examples and ideas on how you come up with these concepts. And I thought I would just talk about them briefly. Obviously, my face is again going over the words, so I'm going to just maybe scoop myself off for a second here. You'll still hear me. So really the objectives of this week are to learn, this is just the first 3 components of the graphic design concept. Strategy, how do you come up with ideas, and then how do you make those ideas turn into a concept? And becoming familiar with the process and the phases of graphic design. That's going to be important too. Your first assignment, you'll be doing thumbnails this week, which is a ideation process in coming up with a concept. So we will be putting it into theory and putting it into practice. So really what the graphic design concept is, it's the creative solution. In this case, it'll be your creative solution to a design problem. It's the underlying thinking of how you design a piece. And it's the primary idea behind a piece. So it's about all those pieces of that puzzle. It's your choice of photos, images, lines, what typeface you choose, what color, the size. All of those things are super important when it comes to developing a really good graphic design concept. So to come up with a concept, it demands ideas. You have to you have to go through a process. You have to come up with ideas to reach the concept. So you need to generate and think of these ideas. I like to think of every project, or in my case, sometimes a job, I narrow it down to a problem. Once you know the problem, then you start thinking of ways on how to solve the problem. And remember, you need to almost struggle a little bit with this problem. Don't always go with your first solution. Many times, you'll push yourself to a more complex idea, which will give you a better concept. That's when you really come up with really good ideas that that create great concepts, great graphic design concepts. Those are the ones that win awards. Strive for that. So your ideas then become useful when you use the idea to solve your visual communication problem. Let me see here. I'm going to show you a little. I'm going to bring myself back. I think I can make this a little bigger, can't I? Oh, geez. Hi there. I thought this is a cute idea. This is something I got at a conference. And the concept behind this, is that it wants to be informative and it wants to be fun. This was really designed for a younger audience, for students that were studying robotics. And you can see that the brochure, it's a big piece. It's a playful piece. It's full of infographics. It's limited color, but what's so cool about this is that it comes apart. Actually, I don't want to take it apart because this is my last one. But it becomes a puzzle, and you can actually become interactive with this brochure and put it together, which I think is just such a great concept on how they designed this brochure meant for that particular audience. Anyway, that's kind of I'm sure the designers went through a process of different ideas and researching their audience and how are they going to get students interested in coming to their booth and going to their school. It was actually for a program. And it became a playful brochure, and it was interactive, and it really did gather a large crowd of the students that happened to be at that conference. So that was a cool concept that they used when they created that brochure. All right, I'll move off again here. All right, so to design your ideas first, there's all kinds of ways of doing this, and chapter 3 is going to give you things to think about, things that you'll want to use in all your future projects. So definitely think about that when you're reading that chapter. You might conceptualize. You might get an idea that's sparked by an association you already know. You might use analogy or metaphor to come up with ideas. You can make a connection with an object or a thought. You can just have a creative thought. You can juxtapose one thing with another. You can use similarities, things that are the opposite. You can find relationships among objects or subjects. All kinds of ways. Definitely read that chapter because it'll give you some ideas on how to come up with ideas. I've just listed a few other ideas here that I've used in the past. You could always start with starbursting, mind maps, word associations. You can research the subject and the audience. Open your mind, think of what you already know, and of course sketch, 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 and thumbnail. This is an example of starbursting. If you don't know what that is, it's when you start asking questions. This is even before you would start to thumbnail. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is what you're going to do for this line association assignment, but this is a technique that you might use with more complex design problems. You might start by listing questions. And the way that this technique happens to work is that you write your topic in the middle, and then you answer a bunch of questions. So I made this example over here, and it's based on figure skates. And, maybe I have to come up with an advertisement on, how to sell these skates. So I might ask a bunch of questions first before I even start generating sketches or, thumbnails or anything like that. That's one idea. You can always mind map. Mind map is kind of the same as starbursting. You start with an idea in the center, and then you come up with topics that come off of them. And then you have subtopics, off of the topics. So you just keep building and kind of doodling as you go along. It can be very creative and fun. You can bring color into it. It's just like a brainstorming activity. And then, of course, there's thumbnails, which are sketches, generally in grayscale or black ink or pencil. They're used to generate lots of ideas on the same topic. You'll want to do many of them. It's going to flesh out your common or your easiest solutions, the ones that really you shouldn't use because they're just too easy and you might lose your viewer too quickly. And they can make your concepts come to life and go further. So literally we're going to do that this week. You're going to be doing thumbnails. And let's just talk about, let me get rid of this real quick here. Okay, so in Moodle, I keep doing that. In Blackboard, if you go to course content, and we're going to be in week 3 here, and we're going to be doing an exercise or an assignment about lines and movement. So I'll just click into there so we can see what's going on here. You're going to get lots of resources. Here's, of course, chapter 3. Go ahead and read that. There's some really cool sites that are posted here. I love these mood lines. Go ahead and take a look at this diagram. I think this is really interesting how these moods have been simplified down to a single line and how they're used. This person has found some really good examples of how these lines are used and repeated in combination with other elements to create some really compelling graphic design pieces. And of course, watch the videos that are posted. And then you'll want to, let me go back, download your assignment and read it over. Essentially what you're going to be doing is creating 4 little compositions based on these emotions using only line. Only line. Make them 5 by 5. Coming back over, sorry. You might, and hopefully you saw the announcement from Mr. Perry about picking your supplies up. I hope you were able to go and get them on Friday. You know, I use a triangle a lot. This is always opposite. This helps you make a right angle, 5 by 5. If you don't have a triangle, you might want to get one or use a T-square. Measure them out, and then you're going to trim them as well. Read all the directions. Use your metal ruler when you're cutting. Definitely use that, especially with an X-Acto knife. Don't use plastic. Let me move this over. All right, so you're going to start with thumbnails. Okay, 10 to 12 thumbnails for each emotion. That means 10 to 12 thumbnails for relaxation, 10 to 12 thumbnails for power. You know, for each one of them, they should be 2 by 2. So we're doing them in proportion to the final. You always want to do it in proportion to the final, so it's a perfect square. Keep each set of thumbnails to 1 page and label them. You know, and you can use expressive lines, implied lines, textural lines, whatever you do, just don't close them. Don't bring them to a shape. And don't create an illustration either. For example, if you were doing the emotion happy, don't make a smiley face. I'm looking for more of the connotation or the meaning that I feel when I see those lines. That's what I'm looking for. And then you'll also do a written part in your project submission. You can photo them or scan them for your final execution. And then you will upload to Blackboard a JPEG file and include the, you know, your Word doc or your Google Doc as well. All right, so I'll also put some other notes up about line and some of the ways it's used and implied. So go ahead and look at those too. Those will also be in the Moodle resources. And if you have any questions, of course, email me.